question is, can I teach the advanced subjects?
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing because yes, you could teach the advanced subjects if you wanted to, but you don't necessarily have to. Some people will say to me, "Oh, now I have to learn calculus so I can teach it to my child." But you really don't have to do that. You can choose to. You can choose to work ahead and learn the subject and study it in advance of having your children learn it, and that's totally fine, but you don't have to do that. And part of the reason is because there's a huge difference between teaching and learning. And what you're trying to do is get your children to learn. Whether you're the one that teaches it or not is not nearly as significant as whether or not they learn it. So, what that might look like is different for different subjects. But let's think for a minute if you are having your children learn piano. Most parents, if they don't know how to teach piano, they'll hire somebody else to do it. And the child will go to piano lessons and they'll take piano lessons from someone else. And then they practice, practice, practice on their own. And if you're anything like me, I couldn't even read music. I would ensure that my children did practice for the amount of time that their teacher told them that they had to practice. But I really didn't know what it is they were supposed to be doing, what it was they were supposed to be sounding like, or anything. Okay, so let's take what we know about piano lessons and apply that to a different subject like physics or calculus. Okay, we did it the same way in our home. I bought a self-teaching curriculum for physics, which was the Apologia. I used a self-teaching curriculum for calculus, which was Saxon with the Dive CDs. And so the kids would look at each lesson either in the book or on the Dive CDs. They would get their instruction directly from something else, the book or the video tutorial, and they would learn it themselves that way. My job then became the same as my job for piano lessons. I would make sure that they were in the book, that they were doing the work, and that I actually saw their daily work being done. Now, granted, you have to look over their shoulder because it doesn't make noise like the piano does, but you're still just making sure that they do the work. Now, with physics and calculus, of course, you can't just hear it and there's not a piano recital at the end. And so what I did was I would only take away their answer keys to those things when I was actually giving a test. So most of the time it was the textbook, the child, and the answer key all together, figuring it out, trying to teach it to themselves, working hard, and trying to get it. And then I would take away the answer key, usually when I went to the grocery store, just between you and me. And as I was at the grocery store with the answer key, they would be at home working on their test. And when I came home, I knew that they hadn't looked at the answer key and I could correct it. Now, of course, it's hard to correct a test with something like physics and calculus because I didn't know what the words meant. I didn't know what the symbols meant. And so I had to look at the answer key and look at the answer that my children gave me and make sure that they were exactly alike. Now, if there was a discrepancy and my children were absolutely certain that their answer was correct and the answer key didn't look like that, that's when I was very thankful that we used a homeschool curriculum because they would call the 800 number. And if the person on the other end of the 800 number could convince me that my children's answer was right, then I gave them credit for it. And if they didn't, then they didn't. Now, I will say we also learned Latin in our homeschool. I did not know Latin before. My children did not know Latin before. We used the Latin Road to English Grammar. The first year we did Latin, I studied ahead. I was about 2 weeks ahead of them. I stayed 2 weeks ahead of them, and I actually did learn Latin 1 that way. The second year we did Latin, I wasn't as excited about it, and so I pretty much hang on by my fingernails, and I learned along with my children, and it was quite a struggle. The third year of Latin, I didn't want to do Latin.
You were done.
I was done. So the children wanted to continue Latin, so they continued with their Latin studies, and it was just like physics and calculus. They learned it on their own. They did their assignments. I made sure that they did their assignments. They took a test. I made sure that the answer on their test looked like the answer in the answering key, and that was just about as far as I could go. And when there was a problem, I called the 800 number. Okay. For the record, even though I didn't know Latin, didn't really teach third year Latin, didn't teach physics, didn't teach calculus, my kids still went into college well prepared in all of those subjects. And for those of you who know me, my son, one of my sons is an engineering student and takes physics and calculus and advanced maths for fun in college and gets straight A's. So I know that he was well prepared, even though he was self-taught. My other son, who is interested in government, really likes the languages, and so he was well prepared with our Latin studies, even though I didn't feel like I had taught anything, and I couldn't be 100% confident that he really knew his stuff. He just dove into college Latin and did really well. So just to recap everything, remember that self-teaching is the goal, not you teaching it to them, but your child teaching it to themselves. I hope that helps.